Motherfucker, I gave the first 2 episodes a chance, and now you come back to me. Fuck you. I'd like to begin by making a point about Arthurite. Just joking. The idea that we'd get into the content so quickly.
So that was a fucking lie.
This is Business Place. First of all, there's going to be a really long introduction by me. Then I'm going to do a really long ad read, which you might skip through, or you might not. If you're a legend, if you're a double legend, you might even get the product. What? Oh! And then Danny is going to give us an introduction, and then at some point, vaguely in the year 2023, it's 2021 if you're watching this in 2024 or something weird like this. I'll probably be watching this video, watch it at some point in the future and be like, oh, past Simon is always so cringe. I look back at stuff I even made like a year ago and I'm like, ah. Everything I make in the past, I'm always like, oh, it's so bad. But then at the time, I'm like, mwah, genius.
Hot diggity dog.
What is wrong with me? It's like I'm arrogant, but also massively humble. One of the best things about me is just how humble I am.
I'm bad, and that's good. I will never be good, and that's not bad.
I was also watching a video the other day about why you shouldn't have long introductions on YouTube. It was by the way, there's a guy who runs, if you're interested in YouTube at all, and you're interested in how things are made, you should definitely check out a dude called Paddy Galloway. He makes videos about how to do YouTube for people, I swear, they're like targeted at my level. And I mean, I don't want to brag. I got like millions of subscribers. But yeah, I'm like, holy shit. Watch his video. Like most videos, you look up how to do YouTube and it's like, don't forget to do the tags. Have you considered having a very clickable thumbnail? Whereas Paddy Galloway is like, yo, this is what's up. And I'm like, holy shit. I learned so much from you, Paddy. You legend. Oh, this video is brought to you by who? I gotta load my ad read, I'm sorry. Sam, use the woman with the puppet and the man and the boop. You know what I mean? Or is that just really specifically British? British people know what I'm talking about. Am I right, Peter? OGBB. My Google Drive is out of control. Where is the adverts folder? Why is this not in order, Google? Thank you. Saved by the search function. This episode is brought to you by Ground new sponsor. Is this the first Ground News has sponsored me elsewhere? But is this the first time they have braved the blaze? Oh, welcome to it, Ground. Whoever is approving this video for Ground News, I sure hope you've watched this channel before because this is gonna get wild.
Hot diggity dog.
Anybody who consumes the news these days knows that it's an imperfect system. Boy, you can say that again. It's kind of shit. I hope this is not a news cut. Gone are the days, I know what it is, don't worry. Gone are the days of quiet, passionate journalists who just tell it like it is. In today's increasingly loud news environment, it's harder than ever to tell sense from nonsense. This is so true, and it's so politically divided. But I don't feel this is like I mean, it's definitely more of a problem than it's ever been. But I remember growing up, there's a bunch of papers in the UK, and 2 of the big ones, like broadsheets. The Times, let's not use the Times, bad example. The Guardian and the Daily Telegraph. Let's use the Guardian and the Daily Telegraph. And you'd be like, oh, I'll read the Daily, let's have a look at the Daily Telegraph. Headline will be like, poor people are stealing all of the money. F the poor. Whereas the Guardian will be like, poor people don't have enough money. F the rich. What's going on? It's very confusing. You can see my confusion. It's like, why don't we just not have this? Why? That's where Ground News comes in. It's a helpful app designed by media outsiders that is dedicated to fighting misinformation and biased news coverage. Tired of one-sided news coverage? The poor, the rich. It's ridiculous.
Daddy, chill.
I mean, it's rarely so extreme, or is it? Let's actually get back to talking about what Ground News want me to. I'm sorry, person who proofs this. I'm so sorry. Welcome to Business Place. Cut through the bias and the BS using Ground News' popular aggregate feed, which pulls together stories from more than 50,000 news sources, bloody hell, across the entire ideological spectrum. Do we have to go across the entire ideological spectrum? It's not like anyone is actually like, yeah, I'd really like, what's that Nazi one? But like no one, we don't need that in there. We don't have to throw that in, do we? Please don't be in there. Ground News allows you to filter the news by political leaning, so you can jump into the app and see the same story brought to you by left-wing, center, or right-wing sources. Oftentimes, you might see a story that is sensational sensationalized by the left or maybe overblown by the right. I feel I've said this already, just in a more animated way. You get the picture, right? You go into the app, it's like, here's a bunch of news stories from different places, and it has this little indicator underneath that will tell you, like, right-wing bias, far right-wing bias, left-wing bias, far left-wing bias, and you can look at it, and then you read it a bit more skeptically, which honestly, skepticism is the gift that keeps on giving. Ground News has a popular feature called News Blind Spot. Wait, I didn't even know about this. That readers across the political spectrum like. We do we? Ever wonder if you're missing a story because it's not showing up in your little political echo chamber? Oh god, I'm in my own political echo chamber, aren't I? The echo chamber of dicks. Well, you're not going to miss it with Ground News because it doesn't just show stories from multiple perspectives. It shows you what ideological groups are covering or ignoring when ideological groups are covering or ignoring specific stories. That is mad useful. You can even filter by world location so you can see what's going on in different parts of it, obviously. Learn more about it and download it yourself using the Ground News app, which I have, by the way, and you probably tell by my riffing that I quite had a good time with this one. Click on the link below and, oh, it's free. Yeah, why don't you do that? Obviously you should do that, it's free. You have to pay for news and they give it to you for free and they tell you if it's made like with bias? Why not get Ground News? Come on, let's get into it, Jesus Christ. We must be like 10 minutes in. Welcome to Business Blaze. The sponsor is like, make sure you put the advert in the first 60 seconds. And I'm like, oh boy, well, you're going to be in the first 60 seconds, then about 4 minutes after that. So sorry. I'd like to begin by making a complaint about arthritis. Danny, oh God. You're not that much older than me. Am I going to get arthritis soon? Not that I suffer from... Why don't I read these ahead? Myself. Decades of consuming the mysterious, juicy goodness of doner kebabs have thankfully left my joints and limbs as supple as a snake overlord. Danny, how do you know about the snake overlord? Just joking, or am I? But arthritis can not only prove to be a chronic pain for those unfortunate enough to suffer from the disorder, it's also very probably to blame for the popularity of the lizard people conspiracy theory. Danny, what is going on? Oh yeah, we're talking about lizard people today. That's why is this channel called Business Blaze? Danny has written me a script, I'm reading it, Sam adds the memes. This is such a mess. I'm gonna have to redo this, aren't I? I'm gonna watch this back later and be like, how can anyone possibly ever make sense of this mess? Embarrassing, Whistler. You see, David Icke used to be relatively normal. It's hard to believe, I know. He kicked off a promising football career with Hereford United in the 1970s, before the agonising pain of arthritis in his right knee, ankles, elbows, wrists and hands forced him to retire from the pitch and led him to the new roles of sports reporter for the BBC and principal spokesman for the Green Party, both of which left him feeling sadly unfulfilled. Feeling let down by conventional medicine, he set about trying to source an alternative treatment for the crippling arthritis which had sabotaged his sporting career, and this led him to the tents of the New Age movement with their joss sticks and magic gems and healing candles. Yeah, because when regular medicine doesn't work, the alternative medicine definitely gonna work, David. It's not. No matter what Alex Jones tells you. They're probably friends, right? I mean, dickheads attract. And allegedly. And this in turn led to his introduction in 1990 to a psychic called Betty Shine. Probably not her real name. Who informed David that he was a healer who had been placed on Earth to work as an instrument of the spirit world. One door closes and another one opens. That's usually how it goes. Yeah, goalkeeper for Hereford United, a spiritual healer. I mean, I guess neither one really required brains. Within a couple of years, David had left behind his positions at the BBC and the Green Party, started exclusively wearing tortoise turquoise shell suits which gave him positive energy, and was proclaiming to everyone who was willing to listen that he was the son of a godhead. This is familiar to me. We've talked about David before. By the end of the decade, he'd written over 10 books, the most notable of which was The Biggest Secret, the book that will change the world, in 1999. It was a sprawling volume which was to be the spearhead of one of the biggest conspiracy theories in modern times. The whole of planet Earth is secretly ruled by interdimensional shape-shifting lizard people who have been manipulating mankind for centuries. No! David, no!
Please, no! 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 No!
It's odd to think that somewhere in a parallel universe, David Icke never developed arthritis. Instead, he went on to score lots of spiffing goals for Hereford. Wasn't he a goalkeeper? He's not going to be scoring goals. This conspiracy theory never gathered steam, and the shape-shifting lizards were able to quietly go about their business without having to deal with any of this bullshit. By the way, I think there's many ways. Like, I find football, soccer, the Americans, extremely boring, although I find American football also extremely boring. I think they could introduce new rules to make it more exciting, like goalkeepers. If they score another goal, if they're just like, I'm running for it, and he just goes up there and he scores a goal, that should count for 2. If he scores a goal by, they sometimes kick it really hard. If they score a goal by kicking it really hard to the other side and they score a goal, I think that should easily they end the game then. They're just like, like potting the black in billiards or pool or whatever it's called. Pot the black, the game's over, the other guy wins. If the goalkeeper scores a goal on the other team's goal, that team wins. The championship, if that's what it's called. To be clear, this wasn't exactly a new theory. David Icke didn't just come up with it completely out of the turquoise. It's an idea which has been knocking around in various shape-shifting forms for years. And we'll return to the possible roots of this theory later in the video. But it was certainly David's book that almost single-handedly spawned a whole new movement which is still going strong today with millions of believers around the world. I should say that I've never read one of David Icke's many books. Excellent. If you've read one of David Icke's many books, just judging you a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit. I mean, why not? You could have been suckered into it. You could have been like, you know, like I'm not like mad at everyone who's in a pyramid scheme. It's like you got suckered into a pyramid scheme because an old friend was like, do you want to go get coffee? And you were like, yeah, okay, haven't seen you in a while, what's up? And they're like, oh, got a great business opportunity for you. And you're like, wow, that is a great business opportunity. Sure, I'll sign up because obviously you've never heard of things before. And then the next thing you know, you're in a pyramid scheme and you're trying to sell me and to join the pyramid scheme. And I'm like, oh no, I've heard of things before. I'm familiar with Amway. No! But it was David's book that almost single-handedly spawned a whole new movement which is still going strong today with millions of believers around the world. I should say that I've never read one of... Oh wait, I've read this already.
Pay attention, fuck.
Some of them are over 1,000 bloody pages long, and life just seems too short. I've already got bookshelves heaving with unread works, and I'm naturally going to prioritize stuff like Tintin in the Congo and The Beginner's Guide to Cooking and Not Setting the Kitchen on Fire before I get round to absorbing David Icke. Excellent. I mean, you should get around to pretty much everything else. I'd read Lord of the Rings before I read David Icke, and if you're a regular to this channel, that is f***ing saying something. One of my mates has recommended that I read a few. According to him, David Icke often makes some good points. I just don't like it when he bangs on about the bloody lizards. But what exactly is David Icke banging on about with those lizards? This is true. You can read a book by a crazy person and be like, oh, that's actually a really good point. Like, I remember when The Secret first came out, I was like, what the f***'s The Secret? I'll read that. And then I was like reading it, and I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, it does make sense. You should be positive. I do think that if you're positive, more good is going to happen to you, because if you're a negative prick, no one likes you. But then they're all like, yeah, and you're sending spiritual energy into the world. I'm like, whoa. Also, I do believe, like, if you put up, like, if you really want a sports car or whatever, you put a picture of the sports car up on the wall, you'll be like, you're going to look at that sports car every day and be like, probably work harder so I can get that sports car. I do believe that will probably work out. But then it's like, no, you don't even have to work hard. You just have to think about wanting that sports car, and that sends it out into the world. And I'm like, done. Obviously nonsense. Let's move on.
All right, then, keep your secrets.
But there's good points in every crazy thing. Like the Bible makes plenty of like very good points. Like, don't kill people. There's plenty of good moral guidance in the book. Also plenty of crazy shit. Plenty of crazy shit, especially the Old Testament. What the going on in there? But that doesn't mean we should take everything in a book so seriously. When it starts getting crazy, just close it, set it on fire, and never come back to it, because it's burned. Well, it's surprisingly difficult, perhaps purposefully difficult, to boil the theory down to a few points. That is partly because not everyone agrees on the same constantly mutating theory. And perhaps also because David Icke isn't very keen on providing you with just a few takeaway facts. He'd much rather you spend money on the 25 books he's written over the years to get the full picture. Ain't nobody got time for that shit. But let's give it a try anyway. Oh god, here we go. For starters, we shouldn't call these aliens lizard people. To be more accurate, they're reptilian humanoids, or reptoids.
That is very funny.
And they may not necessarily be aliens at all. They might have evolved right here on Earth before mastering intergalactic travel. Holy shit. And then just quietly mastered intergalactic travel. That means traveling, but everyone gets confused. It's like, yeah, we're going to master interstellar travel and go to Mars. It's like interstellar literally means the travel between stars. We're going to master intergalactic travel and visit Alpha Centauri. That literally means traveling between galaxies. Get your fucking straight. Bet David makes that mistake. That fucking clown. And then returning a few millennia years later to see how mankind was getting on. Or they might be from another dimension altogether. Mankind isn't millions of years old. Fact 1, error. They might be from another dimension altogether, although they're probably more likely to have come from the Draco constellation. So that's as clear as crystal. I'm very confused. Commonly known as Anunnaki, it's believed that these 12-foot tall reptilians were around to witness the dawn of mankind and began interbreeding with some of the evolving humans to create a fresh hybrid race which would secretly rule the Earth for generations to come. They didn't mate with us in the traditional sense. It was more to do with altering our DNA, as if we were just bits of computer code, which apparently we are anyway, so that's all good. I mean, that's not incorrect in many ways. Definitely alter the DNA. See? occasionally actually correct things in books by crazy people. Apparently, some of the original Icke are still here hiding underground, and they occasionally shapeshift into humans, but again, not in a way that you might expect, as the conspiracy theories sensibly point out. Shapeshifting is impossible. Oh yeah, of course. Just let me catch my breath for a second. I think we actually mentioned something quite logical with that. What they actually do is create vibrations which alter your perception of them. Ah, of course, the vibrations! So you just believe that you're talking to Fred or over the garden fence, when in fact you're really talking to a giant 12-foot lizard. Obviously. It out. What is going on? But it's the descendants of the hybrids that have, for thousands of years, been placed in key positions of power all over the world, including governments, pharaohs, royal families, banking institutions, the Freemasons, the Illuminati, and the Tintagel Annual Carnival Committee. The global elite of hybrids collectively form the Babylonian Committee, and they have been secretly manipulating the progress of mankind throughout history. Oh, they have they? I know, I just gotta stop and read it, but I can't. It's really hard not to stop at every sentence and be like, this is dumb. Just assume that I think everything is dumb so far. All this has obviously required a great deal of effort from the Icke, so the obvious question is, how did the lizards manage to pilot their spaceship without opposable thumbs? No, the real obvious question is, why would they bother? Some say that they're just here for our gold. So others suggest that the reptoids feed off negative energy, which is why they need to keep the human population in a state of constant panic and fear and unrest. I don't know, I'm not in fear, I'm not panicked, I'm not in unrest. I'm pretty good. Maybe that's why I don't see these reptilians. David Icke has claimed that the entire universe is made up of vibrational energy, and the reptoids need to control our teachings and our scientific discoveries to keep us in mental prison and stop us from ever realizing the fundamental truth. But whatever their motive, they're here and they're everywhere. So moving on to a bit of practical advice. How do you spot one? Practical advice, Danny, are we? Really? It's tricky because not all of the hybrids even realize that they're hybrids. You might even be a lizard yourself without knowing it. Yeah, I'm vibrating right now. I'm a lizard. I didn't even know it.
Let's watch this interesting procedure.
Some of the higher profile reptoids, yeah, when I listen to music really loud, the vibrations interfere and I turn into a giant lizard. Some of the higher profile reptoids have included British monarchy, every US president except possibly Trump, Bob Hope, the Rothschild family, Mark Zuckerberg, Vlad the Impaler, Pocahontas, Madonna, Justin Bieber, and Katy Perry. I could have found Hulk Hogan on any confirmed list, but I think that's meant to just be taken for granted. If you're feeling unsure if your next door neighbor or boss might be a talking lizard, there are a dozen of David Icke forums that give handy pointers on what you should be looking for. You should start getting worried if your suspect has green eyes. Uh-oh, I got those. Red hair? Nope, no hair. Quite good eyesight or hearing. My hearing's good, my eyesight is not good, hence the glasses. Unexplained scars on body. Nope, the scars always have explanations because I remember how I got them. A love of outer space. True, love outer space. Big void and nothingness. A smile that displays bottom teeth. Normal smile. Bottom teeth smile. Although this is not officially endorsed advice from the forums, I would strongly suggest looking out for signs that your suspect might secretly be laying eggs, or has a tendency to stand around at bus stops catching flies and spiders with a surprisingly long tongue, or making curious hissing noises. But wait a minute, before we start waggling a suspicious finger at our friends and neighbours, is there any evidence to actually back up this story? Of course there is! I mean, it's not remotely convincing on any level, but let's take a look anyway. Exhibit A is the Bible. Strong starting point, Danny. Brilliant. Second, Exhibit B, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. David Icke points out that Adam and Eve were cast out of the Garden of Eden by the dodgy snake, and this represents a change in the relationship between humans and their reptilian overlords. Another passage from Genesis reveals how the Nephilim roamed the earth in the very early days and started copping off with young human daughters. Nephilim is quite an ambiguous term which is often believed to be fallen angels, but David Icke knows that Nephilim was actually the reptoids. Oh no! And the passage is referring to those first interbreeding sessions. Satan himself is represented as a serpent in Revelations, and this is clearly because he was the leader of the reptoids rather than the fallen genie of the underworld. Oh my god. I just want to stop, to be honest. Why are we even here? Why are you here? Please leave. Go watch something productive.
1,
What?
2, 3, 4.
Of course, you're on slightly dodgy grounds when you need to resort to pointing to the Bible for scientific evidence. Yes, lesson to be learned there. Wider than the topic of this video. Exhibit B is actual video evidence, or more specifically, video evidence from the 1990s. Let me guess. It's going to be grainy and shit. A bunch of theorists point out that if you watch TV interviews of some of the world's most influential people in slow motion, say the Pope, you can often catch a split-second fault in the electronic holographic disguise of the lizard. I thought they were vibrating or some shit. The eyes of the suspect grow bigger or turn green, and you can catch a glimpse of the scaly reptilian underskin during this temporary lapse in the shape-shifting process. These theories strangely died down a bit after the introduction of higher-definition television. What a surprise. What a surprise when we looked at things more closely. Turned out it wasn't true.
So that was a fucking lie.
Whereas likely to be less of a video glitch or a loss in signal, but perhaps the most compelling evidence that David Icke can provide is the long list of eyewitness accounts that lizard overlords are real. Yeah, eyewitness accounts. Eyewitness testimony, famously reliable. Oh wait, no, what's the opposite of reliable again? Ah yes, unreliable. Famously unreliable. My bad, I got confused for a second. David got me. David got me! Son of a bitch! He claims to have traveled to 50 different countries on a mission to interview as many witnesses as possible. On his travels, he met up with the likes of Kathy O'Brien, Arizona Wilder, who claimed that the British royal family regularly forced them to conduct satanic rituals of human sacrifice. During the process, Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Charles shapeshifted into reptilians while sacrificing young children and feasting on human flesh and blood. Sounds likely. And such sightings of reptilian shapeshifting aren't quite as rare as you might think. As recently as 2017, hundreds of Justin Bieber fans were mortified when they witnessed their hero undergoing a frightening metamorphosis at Perth Airport. One local skater reported, "Justin was just hanging around with this big guy, his bodyguard, I guess, and we were just staring because he kept turning into a huge reptile. His bodyguard was pointing at us, shouting that he'd kick our teeth in if we don't put our phones away." What? Is this real? Despite the fact that hundreds of it's obviously not real, were snapping around their phones during the chaotic scene, not a single photograph emerged of Justin Bieber in his natural lizard form. Wait, did hundreds of people really? That's really weird. A few years earlier in 2013, the internet went into meltdown when video footage of a speech by Barack Obama appeared to show a bodyguard lurking in the background he claimed had whose suspiciously unusual features, which confirmed that the president had reptilians working in security. From our understanding, the fuzzy footage just appears to depict a pale guy with a shaved head, but that didn't stop the question being thrown at National Security Council spokeswoman Caitlin Hayden, who responded with good humor by explaining that alien bodyguards are a bit too pricey during the current economic crisis and belt tightening and cutbacks. She said, "I can't confirm the claims made in this video, but any alleged program to guard the president with aliens or robots would likely have to be scaled back or eliminated in the sequester. In the sequester? What does that mean? I'd refer you to Secret Service or Area 51 for more details." That's what you would say, isn't it? That's what you would say. Ha ha ha, yeah, aliens aren't real. Lizards aren't guarding Barack. Ah! Ridiculous. Go ask Area 51. Go ask them, they won't mind. So, bearing in mind that none of this evidence seems particularly credible even under the dimmest of spotlights, where exactly did David Icke get his silly ideas from in the first place? Well, Conan the Barbarian might have something to do with this, or at least the author behind the fictional sword and sorcery hero. Although legends and stories of naughty serpents have been around for centuries, it was a short story by Robert E. Howard which appears to lay down much of the foundations for the reptilian theory. Published in Weird Tales magazine in 1929, the story, The Shadow Kingdom, describes an alien race of serpent men who live underground and are able to infiltrate and control humanity at will via their shape-shifting and mind control abilities. Incredible. This went on to inspire other works of fiction based on similar themes, perhaps most notably Robert E. Howard's good friend H.P. Lovecraft. The fictional story seemingly also inspired an avid science fiction reader and occultist from Oklahoma called Morris Dorrigal to form the Brotherhood of the White Temple in 1930. This is like being like, yeah. No, I read Harry Potter. I'm going to make a Gryffindor club. Everyone would think you were a massive nerd, and that would be the end of it. No one thinks you're a wizard. No one thinks wizards are real. Please stop.
Harry, you are a wizard. Listen here, Hagrid, you fat oaf. I'm not a fucking wizard. For God's sake, Harry, what is with this language? You're a fucking wizard.
And put together a series of books and pamphlets which largely just stole the Serpent Overlord's idea but tried to suggest that it was a real historic event. It's not. Meanwhile, back in the real world, a mining engineer in Southern California generated headlines in 1934 when he appeared to have discovered a secret underground reptilian base. Let me guess. It's not. It turns out not to be that. G. Warren Schufelt claimed to invented a device called radio X-ray, which he used to take readings all over the city of Los Angeles and then came up with a detailed map which depicted an interpretation of the vast labyrinth of tunnels hidden underneath the city. His clever device also detected the presence of gold stashed away in the secret underground network. Loads of it. All he needed now was a few investors to help him dig up this treasure trove, and sure enough, he secured enough funding from both the city and private individuals to bore a shaft down to 350 feet. Boy, he must have been a good salesman. On the agreement that the treasure pot would be split between them. The investors may have been intrigued by Schufeld's story that he had spoken to a Native American from the Hopi tribe called Little Chief Greenleaf, who had revealed to him the old Hopi legend that the lizard people had built this secret underground city 5,000 years ago and quietly ruled the world from their cavernous lair, recording their own history on giant tablets of pure gold. Though if this was real, I don't want to dig down there. They're probably really advanced and they're not gonna be okay with me just digging a big hole into their base. They're gonna be like, yo, get out of here right now. A 12-foot lizard. Beat the out of you. Sadly, the excavation project didn't get very far as the shaft was filled with water after hitting 350 feet. Well, that's the security system, isn't it? Obviously. It turns out that Schufeld's radio X-ray was nothing more than a dowsing stick with no capabilities of any kind. How did someone not check this out? Nobody else has ever managed to find any details of the supposed Hopi legends, and birth and death records show no sign of that Greenleaf or any other names that he supposedly ever went by. So all we had to go on was Schufeld's word, which I'll tell you what, it's not good for much, is it? And bearing in mind that it just passed off a dowsing stick as a magical radio X-ray invention, I would guess that his word wasn't worth a great deal. Danny and I, same page. But it's exactly this kind of shite that helped David Icke put together his theory, not from scientific evidence or fresh discoveries of genuine ancient artifacts or cold, hard, indisputable facts. His whole reptilian theory is based around a fictional story from 1929, a later series of pamphlets which were based on the same story, a sprinkling of the debunked theory regarding the fake planet Nibiru, which we covered in a previous episode on serious pseudoscience. I remember that. Big brain. A small dollop of real-life dodgy gold hunter with a dowsing stick and a few eyewitness accounts from raving loonies who want to be famous. It's interesting that when challenged, David Icke rarely uses the word evidence in defense. Instead, he uses the word information. As I said earlier, he's either not interested or incapable of providing bullet points. He just wants you to absorb his information, which is spread across the thousands and thousands of pages of his books, available from all good and bad bookstores for $10 a pop. Oh yes, we forgot that whole motivating factor here. Dollar bills, baby. Or David Icke's British. Pound sterling bills, baby. Sorry, pound sterling notes, baby. Because we call bills notes. David. It's all about the Benjamins, baby.
Hello, I like money.
While some of this may view this information as a long, sprawling, disjointed mess, it's often been noted that David has a talent for weaving a complex narrative and then somehow tying up all the completely disconnected threads. He somehow manages to take hundreds of different theories and sub-theories and religious texts and works of fiction and then bashes them all together to pick out any coincidental patterns. And his devoted followers get so drawn into the story arc that they often forget that none of this stuff makes any sense when you take apart the components and say them out loud. Maybe David Icke would have made a better fantasy writer than conspiracy nutter. I imagine that if he'd been the brains behind a Song of Ice and Fire series of books, not only would he have finished the last 2 books in the series of yonks ago, but he also would have written another 15 since then. The main difference being that while George R.R. Martin recognizes that he's writing fiction, David Icke would just be dressing it up as fact. There's a giant wall of ice. Wait, that is actually a conspiracy theory. There's a wall of ice, right? There's a big wall of ice in Game of Thrones. Obviously, I've never read the books. I've never seen the TV show because I would hate it. I've in fact seen the first 2 episodes because everyone was going on about Simon, just give this one fantasy a chance. Give it a chance. Give it a chance. And I did. Boy, did I not like it.
Hot diggity dog.
And everyone's like, Simon, you just got to get through the first season. Mother I gave the first 2 episodes a chance, and now you come back to me. Fuck you. And then he's like, Simon, I'm your brother-in-law. That's kind of... Do you have to be so mean to me? So it's a bit of harmless fun, isn't it? Nobody's getting killed over this, are they? Well, maybe it's not as harmless as you might think. Some of those theories seeped into the belief of cult domestic terrorist group QAnon. Are they really classified as a domestic terrorist group now? That's intense. While the reptilian resistance movement, United, boasts a startling manifesto which calls for violent declaration of war against the evil reptiles that have infiltrated the US government. Oh, guys. As recently as 2020, the Nashville bombing, which injured 8 people and damaged dozens of buildings, was carried out by Anthony Quinn Walker, who died in the blast. Investigators concluded that Anthony was not a terrorist. He was just a conspiracy theorist who believed that evil lizards ruled the world and that everything, including death, is just an illusion. how does that make him not a terrorist? It's like even the real terrorists, they believe in like crazy illusions. It's religion. It sounds to me that he might have been reading just a bit too much David Icke. But considering that a 2013 poll conducted by Public Policy Polling, great name, concluded that 4% of registered American voters, that's about 12 million people, believe that politics is controlled by lizard people. No! I'm sure the conspiracy theorists like David Icke will continue. 4%? That's every 1 in 25 people believes this. You're in a supermarket with 50 people. 2 of those motherfuckers believe the world is run by lizards. What the fuck? What? This video might be seen by, let's say, 100,000 people. 4,000 of those motherfuckers smash that dislike button. And every time that cash register rings to register a new book sale, David Icke is likely to lick his lips in delight. Stop press! Forget everything I just said. I just realized that Duke of York Prince Andrew completely gave the game away back in late 2019, but not that many people really noticed. Prince Andrew had been under the spotlight following the death of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The prince had enjoyed a close friendship with Epstein over the years, and it was alleged that he had a string of sexual encounters with then underage Vivian Roberts Gieffera, whom Epstein was using for sex trafficking. Oh my god, I just realized the other day, I was like, Prince Andrew, like he's involved in these big scandals and I was like, I always just assumed that he was some like royal, like there's loads of royals and you lose track of them. They like, I don't know, who the is Princess Charlotte? I've heard of her. Or Princess Beatrice. I have no idea who they are. Are they like Prince Harry's cousin or some shit? No one cares. And I'm like, but Prince Andrew is the Queen's son! I was like, oh my god, I had no idea. Which is unbelievable. I'm actually British. And I was like, that's Charles's brother, the future king's brother. I'm like, oh shit, Prince Andrew. They're gonna be like, dude, this is not making us look good. Although, to be fair, lately, there's that royal family not been looking so good, have you? To put the record straight, Prince Andrew agreed to give an interview on Newsnight to Emily Maitlis it proved to be a car crash interview from an unremorseful prince, and it led directly to him stepping down from all public roles. But during the interview, Prince Andrew poured scorn over Virginia Roberts' allegation that she once spent time dancing with a particularly sweaty prince at a London nightclub. Prince Andrew reckoned that this couldn't be true. I don't sweat, he claimed. It's like the Shaggy defense. It wasn't me. He went on to hastily explain that he lost the ability to sweat following an adrenaline overdose during the Falklands War. Holy shit. Several doctors later disputed this suggestion, as an adrenaline overdose is more likely to cause excessive sweating in humans. Yeah, in humans maybe, but not in lizards who don't even have sweat glands. Oh! And thus we've proved it's all real. I suspect he got a proper tail whipping from the Queen when he returned home to the palace after that slip of the forked tongue. This has been an episode of Business Blaze. It's been like a really long one, brought to you by the legends over at Ground News, who they wouldn't stand for any of this nonsense. Ground News is free. You should get it below. Show some support for the show. Show some support for the show. And I'll see you next time. Stay legendary. Don't believe any of this stuff, all right? All right? I'm watching. Don't believe any of this stuff, all right?